The cell beneath the palace was older than the throne itself, a place carved not only to restrain bodies, but to break spirits. Its stones sweated with dampness, and the air carried the sour scent of rust and forgotten cries. Amaris sat on the bare floor, her wrists bound with iron that bruised her skin. Above her, footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate, each one a reminder that judgment waited. At dawn, she was dragged before the council. The queen sat stiffly on the high seat, her eyes ringed with exhaustion and grief. The elders flanked her like carved sentinels, their faces severe, their loyalty sharpened by fear. Amaris stood alone in the center of the hall, shoulders squared, chin lifted. "You will answer us," the queen said, her voice trembling despite her effort to command it. "Since your arrival, my husband has vanished, my son has vanished. The kingdom trembles. Speak." "I know nothing of their disappearance," Amaris replied calmly. A wave of disbelief rolled through the elders. "You came from nowhere," one snapped. "You entangled both king and prince," said another. "Chaos follows you like a shadow," a third added. The queen's gaze cut deep. "Who are you, really?" Before Amaris could answer, Elder Ejik stepped forward. He had been silent until now, his eyes fixed on her face with a strange intensity. "My queen," he said slowly, "grant me leave to question the girl privately." The queen hesitated. Then, driven by desperation more than trust, she nodded. "Very well, but be brief." Amaris was led back to her cell. The torch outside the cell cast trembling shadows when Ajik arrived. He dismissed the guards with a wave, then stood before the iron bars, studying Amaris as though looking into a grave that had just opened. "You have her eyes," he said quietly. "The same stillness, the same strength." Amaris stiffened. "You knew my mother." Ajik's breath shuddered. "And Kemdalu was like a sister to me." Silence stretched between them. "You are her daughter," he said at last, not as a question, but as a truth reclaimed. Amaris closed her eyes. "Yes." Ejike leaned heavily on the bars. "Then the blood of Obachima flows in you." "Yes." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Why have you returned, child? Is it vengeance?" Amaris shook her head fiercely. "I swear to you, elder, I did not come for revenge." "But you were asked to take it," Ejike pressed gently. "Yes," she admitted, "and I refused." "By whom?" he asked. Amaris met his gaze steadily. "That I cannot tell." Ejike nodded slowly. "And where have you been all these years?" "I will not say," she replied. He sighed, torn between relief and dread. "You must understand. This truth can shatter the palace." "I know," Amaris said softly. "That is why I keep it." What neither of them knew was that a palace guard stood beyond the corner of the corridor, pressed against the wall, listening with widening eyes. By nightfall, the queen had been told everything. She summoned Elder Ejik at once. "You went to her cell alone?" the queen said coldly. "And you emerged with knowledge you did not share." Ejik bowed. "I only suspected, my queen." "You confirmed it," she snapped. "You concealed the most vital truth in this kingdom." "I did not protect her," Ejike insisted. "I only sought clarity." "Arrest him," the queen ordered, her voice breaking. Chains were clamped onto Ejike's wrists as disbelief flooded his face. "For loyalty?" he asked bitterly. "For betrayal," the queen replied, "and for conspiring through silence." He was dragged away, his eyes meeting Amaris's briefly as he passed the cell. Regret and apology burned in them both. Later that night, the queen came to Amaris's cell herself. "You will confess," she said, her voice stripped of mercy. "You will tell us everything, who you are, where you came from, and what you have done." "I have done nothing," Amaris said quietly. "Then pain will loosen your tongue," the queen replied. By morning, the door slammed shut. Darkness thickened. Hours later, water gathered unnaturally in the corner of the cell. From it, Ola emerged, her expression sharp with anger. "This is the cost of hesitation," Ola hissed. "You were meant to strike, not tremble." "They think I killed them," Amaris whispered, "and now Ejiki suffers because of me." "You compromised destiny," Ola said, "yet the path remains." "I fear they are dead," Amaris admitted. "The king, Obina." Ola's eyes glowed. "You will learn the truth only if you choose vengeance." "And if I refuse?" Then others will decide your fate for you. The water stilled. Ola vanished. Alone again, Amaris sank against the cold wall, iron biting into her wrists, the weight of blood and silence pressing down as the palace slept, unaware that the truth it feared was already awake. Night wrapped the palace in a suffocating stillness, as though even the walls were holding their breath. Beneath it, in the stone belly of the kingdom, Amaris lay curled on the floor of her cell, wrists swollen where iron had gnawed into her skin. Every muscle throbbed, every breath burned. Dawn crept closer, and with it, the queen's promise. By morning, Amaris pressed her forehead against the cold wall, fighting the rising tide of despair. For the first time since she could remember, the river was silent to her. No whisper, no warmth. Only the echo of chains and the distant shuffle of guards. She did not know if the king or Obina still lived. The thought hollowed her chest. Far beneath the palace, far beneath the riverbed itself, Ola knelt before a throne carved from coral and bone. The waters there glowed faintly, pulsing like the heart of the sea. At its center sat the queen of the coast, ancient and immense, her presence bending the currents around her. "My queen," Ola pleaded, her voice breaking through the deep. "Amaris will be broken by sunrise. The humans plan to torture her until she confesses to crimes she did not commit. Let me take her away. Let me save her." The queen of the coast regarded her with eyes older than storms. "No," she said. The single word rolled through the water like thunder. "She is one of us," Ola insisted. "She carries our breath, our blood, our promise. She also carries human hesitation," the queen replied coldly. "She was warned. She was given clarity. She chose uncertainty." Ola's fist clenched. "Then she will die." "Or she will rise," the queen answered. "Do not interfere. Her fate must unfold without your hand." Ola's voice trembled with fury. "If she is harmed, you will not cross my command," the queen snapped. "If you do, you will be cast out from the current you call home." Silence swallowed Ola's protest. She bowed, but rage burned behind her eyes. Ola surfaced near the moonlit riverbank, breath ragged, heart pounding. She summoned Mirella and Sanu, two young marine girls who often swam the shallows with her, their laughter once as light as foam. "She will be tortured by dawn," Ola told them urgently. "We must take her. Together." Mirella shook her head immediately, eyes wide with fear. "You heard the queen's decree? We cannot act." "She is family," Ola hissed. Sanu stepped back, voice trembling. "And the queen is law. If you defy her, you doom us all." Ola's jaw tightened. "So you would leave her to die?" "No," Mirella whispered, "but destiny must be allowed to bite." Sanu reached out, grasping Ola's wrist. "Listen to us. Step away. If you push further, the queen will not forgive you." Ola tore free and turned toward the palace, fury and helplessness tangling like weeds around her heart. Back in the cell, the water at Amaris's feet stirred. She lifted her head weakly as Ola emerged, her form flickering, unstable. "They will hurt you at daybreak," Ola said urgently. "I tried to stop it." Amaris's lips cracked into a faint smile. "You tried?" "The queen of the coast forbade me," Ola spat. "She says your fate must play out." Amaris closed her eyes. "Then perhaps this is it." "No," Ola snapped. "It does not have to be." She knelt before Amaris, gripping the bars. "Choose now. Take the revenge. Claim what was stolen. I will break these chains before the sun rises." Amaris shook her head slowly. "I won't trade one prison for another." "You are already condemned," Ola argued. "Your silence has cost you everything." Amaris's voice was barely a whisper. "If Obina is dead, if the king is dead, then revenge will not bring them back." Ola stilled. "You fear they are dead?" "Yes." Ola searched her face, then straightened. "Then hear this. You will learn the truth, only when you stop resisting what you are." Before Amaris could answer, the water withdrew violently. Ola vanished, leaving behind only ripples in the echo of her frustration. Morning came with screams. Amaris was dragged from the cell once more. Pain followed questions again, sharper this time, more deliberate. She bit through blood and darkness, clinging to the last fragments of herself. Then chaos. Footsteps thundered. Orders were shouted, doors burst open. Someone screamed the name of the prime minister. The torture stopped abruptly. By afternoon, the palace boiled with revelations. The king and prince had been kidnapped, not vanished. Taken under sealed orders issued by the prime minister himself. He had planned to erase both father and son, seize the throne amid confusion, and rule as savior. But fate turned. The guards meant to kill them failed. In the hills beyond the city, the king and Obina escaped, battered but alive. By sunset, the prime minister lay in chains. The cell door opened. Amaris squinted against the light as the queen herself stood there, her expression tight, unreadable. "You are released," the queen said. "The accusations against you have collapsed." Amaris said nothing. Later in the grand hall, the king apologized, formally, carefully, without understanding who she truly was. His voice trembled with embarrassment and relief. Obina found her afterward, clasping her hands as though she might vanish again. "I never doubted you," he whispered. "Never." Amaris wanted to believe him, wanted to lean into the fragile hope blooming in her chest. But deep beneath the palace, the river stirred uneasily. The queen of the coast watched in silence, and Ola, hidden in the shadows, knew this was not the end. Only the moment before destiny struck its final blow. The palace did not celebrate the king's return. It merely endured it. Though the prime minister had been exposed and dragged away in chains, the halls remained tense, as if the walls themselves feared what truth might be spoken next. Servants whispered. Elders avoided one another's eyes. And at the heart of it all stood Amaris, no longer imprisoned, yet far from free. For 2 days after her release, the queen did not summon her. That silence was more unsettling than accusation. When the summons finally came, it was brief and cold. "Bring her to the inner council chamber." Amaris walked through the carved doors with steady steps. Inside sat the queen, the king, Prince Obina, and the elders. Elder Ajiki stood among them, freed but visibly changed. His eyes met Amaris's with quiet apology. The queen rose slowly. "There are truths," she said, her voice heavy, "that rot a kingdom if they remain buried." She turned to the king first, then to the prince. "This girl is not a stranger." The king frowned. Obina leaned forward. "She is Amaris, daughter of Nkemdulu, the late queen, and Obachima, the ninth." The chamber erupted into stunned murmurs. Obina's breath left him in a rush. "What?" The king stiffened, his face drained of color, his lips parting slightly as if words might come. Yet none did. Amaris stood still, her heart pounding, the truth now bare and irreversible. Ajik stepped forward. "I have known since I saw her face. I only suspected at first, but suspicion became certainty." Obina turned to Amaris, disbelief and something like fear flooding his eyes. You are?" "Your blood," Amaris said quietly. The silence that followed pressed down like a hand on the chest. Obina slowly turned to his father. "Is this true?" The king's jaw tightened. "Yes." The prince staggered back as if struck. "My father," Obina said, his voice trembling. "What happened to her parents?" The room seemed to shrink. The queen watched the king closely. The elders leaned forward. The king's eyes hardened. "That is not a story for this chamber." Obina stepped closer, desperation cracking through his restraint. "You were there. You ruled after my uncle died. You must know." "I said enough," the king snapped. But Obina would not relent. He turned sharply to Ejike. "You knew my uncle. You knew Queen Nkemdulu. Tell me, was my father responsible for their deaths?" Ejike's expression darkened. He shook his head slowly. "I will not answer that," he said. "That truth belongs to the man who lived it." Obina's chest heaved. "You all hide behind silence." He turned to Amaris, eyes pleading. "Please, you must know something. Tell me." Amaris held his gaze, pain threading through her voice. "Only your father can answer that." The prince's face crumpled. The weight of possibility pressed down on him, heavy and cruel. That night, Obina wandered the palace like a restless spirit. He replayed moments. His father's ambition, his mother's quiet endurance, the way power had always bent conversations into half-truths. By dawn, he stood before his father's chamber. The king dismissed his attendance at Obina's request. Father and son faced one another in a room filled with shadows and trophies of conquest. "Tell me the truth," Obina said, voice raw. "Were you responsible for their deaths?" The king stared at him long and hard. "You think greatness is clean?" he asked coldly. "That thrones are won by gentleness?" Obina clenched his fists. "I think murder stains everything it touches." The king's eyes flashed. "You know nothing about power, nothing about what it costs to protect a kingdom." "Then answer me," Obina shouted, "or I swear I will never forgive you if you are guilty." The king turned away. "Go, before you say words you cannot reclaim." Obina left, fury and sorrow tearing through him. From that day on, he clung to Amaris as though she were an anchor in a collapsing world. He sought her out in gardens, in corridors by the riverbank. "Help me understand," he pleaded again and again. "Help me carry this." Amaris listened, heart heavy, torn between truth and restraint. She could feel the river stirring beneath her feet, restless and waiting. The queen watched them both from afar, silent, calculating, knowing that once names were spoken aloud, nothing could ever return to what it had been. And deep within the palace, a reckoning gathered strength, fed by silence, guilt, and the unbearable weight of blood. For 3 days after the truth was laid bare, the palace heard nothing from the king. No council was summoned, no decrees were issued. The great doors of his private chamber remained shut, guarded night and day by silent men who dared not ask questions. Servants whispered that the king neither ate nor slept. Others said they heard him pacing endlessly, like a lion trapped in its own den. Prince Obina tried to see him. The queen tried. Even the elders tried. The answer was always the same. "He sees no one." Those 3 days stretched like a wound that refused to close. Amaris felt them keenly. She stayed mostly by the river, sitting in long silences, listening to currents she no longer trusted to guide her. The truth had changed everything. The palace now looked at her differently, not as a suspect, not as a guest, but as something far more dangerous, a reckoning that had survived burial. On the fourth night, a messenger came for her. "The king summons you." The chamber was dim when she entered, lit only by a single oil lamp. The king stood by the window, his back to her, shoulders heavy with something that was not age but consequence. "You asked to see me," Amaris said quietly. The king turned. His face was drawn, eyes rimmed with sleeplessness. "I did not know," he said at once as though rehearsed. "If I had known who you were, if I had known you lived." "You knew my parents," Amaris replied. "You ruled after their deaths." The king exhaled sharply. "Power does not come to those who wait for innocence. It comes to those willing to seize it." She studied him then, not with anger, but with clarity. "And you will not relinquish the throne." "No," he said firmly. "I will not." The kingdom would fracture. Whatever wrongs were done, real or imagined, they cannot undo the present. "Then why call me here?" Amaris asked. His voice faltered. "Because I wanted you to understand that some choices are heavier than blood." Before she could answer, the air shifted. The oil lamp flickered violently. Water seeped through the stone floor, thin at first, then rising with unnatural speed. "No," Amaris whispered. The water surged upward, twisting, gathering form. Ola emerged, eyes blazing, fury uncontained. "You speak of weight," Ola hissed at the king, "yet you have never carried the dead." "Stop!" Amaris shouted. "This is not your decision." But Ola had already moved. The water struck once, swift, precise. The king fell without a cry. Silence followed, thick and final. Amaris dropped to her knees beside him, disbelief tearing through her chest. "You promised," she said, voice breaking. "You promised you would not act without me." Ola stood rigid, trembling with rage. He would never have let go. He would have poisoned the future as he poisoned the past. "This was not your right," Amaris said hoarsely. Ola looked at her, hurt flickering beneath defiance. "You were meant to finish this." She dissolved back into water, leaving only ripples in the echo of what could never be undone. The palace mourned. The king's death was declared natural, his heart finally crushed beneath years of rule and recent captivity. The elders accepted the explanation readily, Truth, after all, often served power best when softened. Obina did not speak for days. Ejike, now fully restored to his position, summoned Amaris to a private chamber just before the burial rites. He looked at her long and hard. "Did you have a hand in his death?" he asked quietly. Amaris met his gaze. "No?" Ejike searched her face. "Then why did you return?" The question hung heavy. "I did not come for vengeance," she said. "I came because the river does not forget, and neither does blood." Ejike nodded slowly. "That answer will have to be enough." After the burial, Obina came to her at last. His eyes were hollow, grief and truth having stripped him bare. "I am sorry," he said simply, "for everything." She placed a hand over his. "I know. I am ready to relinquish the throne," he said. "If its foundation is stained—" She shook her head. "No, you are more deserving than he ever was." He stared at her. "After all this?" "Because you question," she replied. "Because you were willing to lose power for truth." Tears slipped down his face. "Stay," he pleaded. "Help me rebuild." She stepped back gently. "My place is not here." Before dawn, Amaris sought out the queen. The queen stood stiffly as Amaris approached, fear and pride warring in her eyes. "I bear you no grudges," Amaris said calmly. "But you must learn to question the right things, not the wrong people." The queen's voice trembled. "You could destroy us." "Yes," Amaris replied softly. "I am of the river, and if I wished, this palace would remember my name in ruins." The queen fell to her knees. She turned to the elders. "Plead with her." Amaris raised a hand. "There is no cause for alarm." She walked into the great hall and addressed the entire cabinet, ministers, elders, guards, nobles. "Make this kingdom good," she said, her voice carrying like water over stone. "Rule with justice, or I will return, this time with fire." No one spoke. No one dared breathe. At sunrise, Amaris walked toward the river path, her silhouette framed by mist. Obina stood watching, tears blurring his vision. "Will I see you again?" he called. "Only if you forget your promise," she replied. And then she was gone, into the unknown, into legend, into the quiet depths where rivers remember everything.